Right, let's do it. So, let's pull this down. We can go from there. Right, team. So, we are going to break down kind of the three pillars that I've been thinking about for a long, long time. This video for me, I suppose, is quite nice to do. Um, it's something I wanted to do for a while, actually, because going away really did help me to try to identify what my why is, which is quite needed recently. I've spent a long time trying to figure out what I actually believe, and not just what's kind of good on Instagram, but like what change can actually be made and how to actually help change people. I think I have spent a long time trying to figure out what I actually believe, not what sounds good on Instagram, but what I genuinely think helps people change. And after everything that I have been through, I think that I've kind of found it. Now, I've come down to three pillars for my business, but three pillars of what I believe in the mission that I first started this on. So, when I first started this 6 years ago, the plan was to try to create a business which supported people with their mental health, which gave people an alternative to traditional therapy, not to replace therapy, but to give people who would never go to therapy a place to go, a way to understand themselves, a way to feel more confident in who they are, and a way to just improve the life that they've got. Those three things right there are the three pillars, which are understand yourself, kind of build your body, and own your life. Now, those three pillars to me are what creates change in people, but you need all three to be able to create the change. You see, I realized through my life that I had a couple of different paths, and I read a couple of different books which really cemented a lot of the things that I was playing around with. So there was a book that I read early on, which when I first started the business, which was if you have a price and someone can pay you an amount of money to sacrifice your dreams, then that price is literally the price of your dreams. So if someone could pay you a salary of £20,000 a year, £100,000 a year, £1 million a year, well, that is the price for you to give up your dreams. And that stuck with me a little bit because it made me realize that if I wanted to create a business, then it needs to be something that not that I'm passionate about, but it needs to be something that am driven to do. So I need a mission that I needed to follow. And the mission for me has been genuinely to try and help people not feel so alone and to give people a way out of the pain that they may be experiencing. So I found myself in a lot of pain growing up. So like I just found myself questioning who I was. I remember being in school, like in drama class at lunchtime, just kind of hiding away from people. I remember growing up through life, just feeling a little lost. And when I lost a few people due to suicide and things like that, that was when I really started to understand that I struggled with my own mental health. And that's where the kind of journey genuinely started for me, which was what do I need to do and what can I do to improve my mental health? And the first pillar of that was just to understand myself. Like I needed to understand why I felt the way I felt. Through understanding meant that I could start to make changes in who was, which allowed me to not hate who I was, which allowed me to not feel like everything was worthless and everything was pointless. So the whole goal, literally the whole goal for me was to kind of silence my busy brain. Can I find a way to understand who I am in order to change who I am? Because I felt like the change is the thing that I needed. I needed to change who I was because I didn't like who I was. And if I was to change who I am, then I needed to understand what created the version of me today. So the self awareness really came about from a conversation or came about because of a certain reason. And this was a conversation I had with a client the other day, which was there are a lot of people who struggle in relationships as they grow up. They struggle because they just can't hold down a relationship. And a lot of the problems that people experience in relationships when someone breaks up with someone, everyone goes, you need to go away, you need to do the work, and then get back into a relationship. But the problem is when you're on your own and you're not in a relationship, you actually feel like everything's pretty sound. There's not really anything questioning my self-worth. I feel pretty good. Life's pretty good. I'm not kind of in a battle with my own brain. Whereas when you get into a relationship, all of the problems that you may have experienced, all of the self-worth issues that you may have had from childhood, all of that stuff starts to come up. Any attachment problems you have starts to come up. Any fears and insecurities you have around relationships starts to come up. And that only comes up when you're in a relationship, which is why like someone who is single for a long period of time and afraid of getting into a relationship, a lot of the time are afraid because every time they get into a relationship, the first 3 to 6 months is really great. And then at the 6 month mark, you start to realize, and all your fears start to come up, and then you go, well, this person's going to leave me, or all of the little battles that you guys start to have. My problems are here, your problems and fears are here, and they're butting heads and they're coming at each other. Are our demons compatible? That is one of the only ways that I believe that people can become self-aware and conscious of the problems that they have in relationships is by to be in a relationship, because nothing makes you more self-conscious. There is the old Adam and Eve explanation of this, which was God created Adam and they were naked in Adam and Eve, and they were both naked, walking around paradise, feeling great, Garden of Eden, everything was cool. And then as soon as God came into the picture, they were kind of embarrassed. They got a bit self-conscious. They wanted to hide themselves away and cover themselves because they were nude. Now, that is about someone starting to know you in a deeper way, starting to know the things you have done wrong and the problems of you. That only comes about in a relationship. So like think of yourself from trying to understand yourself comes around from self-awareness. Self-awareness can be broken down into four little sections of a Johari window, which is to understand yourself, or the fullness of who you are can be understood in four sections. The first one is parts of you that people know and that you know. So there's parts of you that you understand and other people understand. This is the way that you show the world who you are, right? You go into work, people know you for a certain way, you act a certain way, that is incongruent with itself. Then there are parts of you that only you know that other people don't. And this could be fears of yours, this could be insecurities of yours, this could be habits that you do that no one else knows, right? Now, the parts of you that you know and no one else knows, you're aware of, you know about those things. But then you have another section, which is parts of you that you don't really truly understand, but other people can see. This could be you do something over and over again. Maybe you get with the wrong partner over and over again, or maybe you fall out with the same person over and over again, and you can't see it, the reason why, but other people can see it. Other people can see parts of you that you can't necessarily understand. And that's really what I'm talking about in a relationship, which is whenever there is an argument that happens in a relationship, I come to you and say, you've done this thing which has really annoyed me. You come to me and say, you've done this thing which has really annoyed me. And we end up having this battle to see, oh, am I right, or are you right? Or is there a combination of us both being right? And what that is ultimately is a reflection of who you are. And that is because someone will come to you with things about you that you didn't even know you did. That is part of what I'm talking about here, which is you can only start to understand who you truly are by being open to the fact that you don't know who you are. And then the fourth window of that Johari window is parts of you that you don't know and don't understand, and that no one else knows and understands. This is the complete unknown. The complete unknown can only come about, you can only get understanding from the complete unknown by going into new situations. So like the old additive of you never know what you would do if you were in someone else's situation is such a really good framing when judging other people's actions, because you don't know how you would act if you were in the same shoes as someone else. So judging their actions from your lens isn't necessarily a true reflection of how you would act if you were in those shoes as well. So when you end up entering new situations, you end up finding out more about yourself and how you would act. The book Ordinary Men is around the soldiers the German soldiers who were given the job of executing women and children, that these guys were just ordinary men, and these ordinary men turned into like absolute kind of products of evil. And the story is, you may be an ordinary man, but you don't know necessarily what you're capable of, which is the same thing of trying to understand your shadow and doing shadow work. It's the deeper, darker parts of you which you don't necessarily want to share with other people, or even want to believe within yourself. And understanding yourself and understanding your mind, to me, is one of the keys to unlocking happiness within life. Because if you want to get somewhere, you keep coming across the same problems. Well, you need to find a way to overcome those problems. And the only way you can find a way to overcome those problems is to understand how you got to the place you are right now. If I feel a certain way, why do I feel that way? If I act a certain way, why do I act that way? Is there a possible explanation for that? And that's kind of what started my journey with all of this, which was, I realized that when I was in relationships that I was quite a jealous person, and jealous or protective, which is another word for just controlling for people that say they're protective. But I wanted to find a way in myself to not be a jealous person. So I wanted to realize, well, why did I have this fear within me that someone else was going to leave? Why do I have this fear within me that I'm not good enough for this person? Why do I have this thing that for 3 to 6 months I get into a relationship and everything's great, and then the 6 month mark we start to get this eye-opening experience where all of our stuff starts to come out and unravel, and we start to butt heads? What is that about? And I think it is, there are attachment issues that we have through childhood. There are there are beliefs that we hold that we don't necessarily know we hold, that come up in relationships. So for me, it was truly trying to understand that I was in a lot of pain because of how I believed, because of how I perceived situations. And I wanted to find a way to understand my own brain, because I just didn't really like myself. And for a long period of time, I was very depressed and very much didn't want to be here. So it was like, well, if I could understand why, I may be able to fix those problems. Because if you don't understand the cause of something, you could try to fix a load of different things, but that might not be the necessary cause of that thing. Like, I give this example because it works really well when you think about training, which is, whenever someone is squatting, they may not be able to perform a perfect squat. And a lot of people will go, well, this is because of, like, people will go, oh, it's my knees or whatever. The problem that you may be looking at it wrong. So they can't hit the right position, and that might be because their knees can't travel in the right place, but you can't fix the problem from the knees. You might have to do some investigation. Is it the ankles? Is it their thoracic mobility? What is it that's stopping this person from getting into the position that they need to get into? Well, life is exactly the same. I have this constant pattern and problem that keeps coming up in my life. The question is why, basically. So for us to understand this, we need to understand what is the cause of the problems that we come across constantly in our life, and that is patterns of behavior. Patterns of behavior tell you a lot about who you are, and trying to almost give you an indication of why you do what you do. So if you constantly get into a relationship and you have a constant fear that this person's going to leave, and they always seem to leave, well, is that a self-fulfilling prophecy? Where has that come from, and why is that a thing? Now, I if you look back over your life and you look at different patterns, you want to understand why they happen. And I always believe you need to go to the root cause first. So it's like when you look at a pipeline for a business, when people do marketing within a business, if you think we have a product over here that people are trying to sell, I need someone to kind of come through a pipeline to get to that product. And the pipeline is normally, say you post a piece of content, you give them a free lead magnet. That free lead magnet, you collect their email, then you send them an email and try to get them in your kind of ecosystem, and then try to sell them a product, and then they buy the product, right? So they go through all of these, and within that pipeline, you not only have the marketing. If you take it from an ad standpoint, it's quite easy to understand. You have an ad, someone clicks the ad, they fill out the form on the page, you give them a call and a sales call, they convert into a client. At some point along that process, there is a problem. Now, we can try and fix the sales problem, but if we have a problem with our ad, then fixing a sales problem which is halfway along this pipeline is not going to actually create the difference. The difference is the top of the funnel and trying to get people in. The same thing goes for your own mental health and understanding yourself. If you try to fix a problem and you aren't trying to fix the root cause or trying to understand the root cause, you have no idea what's creating it in the first place. So I want to try and think of a good example of this, which I have experienced, because it might help you to understand what something you may have gone through. So, an example of, it's been so long since I've done a lot of this work. An example of this is you break up with your partner, or your partner breaks up with you, and you and your partner break up, and you believe it's because they don't think you're good enough for them. They treat you really badly and they make you feel a certain way, and they do all of these things which really hurt you, and that's why you break up with them. What if the problem was that you never felt good enough in the first place, and that all of that person's actions you attributed to you not being good enough? So it's almost like you already don't feel good enough, and then the person does the things that they do, which confirms that you're not good enough. Now, is it the person doing the things which makes you feel that way, or do you just feel that way in the first place? Why do you feel that way? Is it because of their actions, or is it because of a long string of things that have happened throughout your life, which has given you a pattern and tried to explain to you that you're not good enough? Like, that's the path that you need to go on with this understanding yourself. I suppose for me, it was a big part of my journey in general, which was, can I understand who I am to be able to then create changes to move forward? And that was why I created like the progress pyramid. A big part of the book in itself, the last little bit of it, is to understand insecurities, is to understand coping mechanisms, is to understand my fear, because these are the things which I need to be self-aware of to understand what's going on. I'm going to read you a little part of it because I think it's quite interesting. Becoming self-aware is the only way for you to become the best person you can be. I think self-awareness allows you to take responsibility for your actions as well as to be honest with yourself. It allows you to make the right choices in any given situation. Becoming self-aware consists of two things. One is you're asking yourself why. The second is asking yourself what. Why has something happened, and what part did I play in it? Once you fully understand why something has happened and why there was something you could have done about it, the more chance you have of being able to take ownership of the problem and solve it. Anytime you're scared, angry, frustrated, or insecure, there is a reason. And every time this happens throughout the day, these are opportunities for you to learn more about yourself. They are calls for you to take responsibility of being self-aware enough to own your problems. You see, if you are self-aware, you can then see when there is a defense mechanism kicking in to protect you from looking where you need to look. When it comes to being self-aware, we need to realize that we have the defenses that are programmed to protect us from distressing situations. It is almost like there are different parts of us all fighting to get their wants and needs met. Since Freud, there have been countless different psychoanalytical theories that try to explain this. I love this idea because it gives us the power to detect which parts of ourselves control us in any given situation. Being self-aware allows you to see when the defenses have kicked in, when the unwanted version of yourself is in control, and when you are just afraid, leading you to reacting rather than responding. By taking a step back, looking at the different problems you may be experiencing and trying to understand why, you have the ability to address the actual problem rather than just putting a band-aid on it and covering it up. I probably should have just started with that because that sums it all up perfectly. Being self-aware is basically about understanding, is the way that I'm reacting right now true to who I want to be, or is this reacting out of a past fear and insecurity of mine? Am I just scared? Am I saying I don't want a relationship because I don't want a relationship, or am I saying I don't want a relationship because I'm afraid of getting in one? Like I ask those questions in that way because I do think it gets to the root cause really quickly of a lot of problems. Like I've seen it time and time again with a lot of clients who are single, and they say to me they don't want a relationship. They're happy with who they are and they're happy being on their own. But they don't really commit to that. I think people can be truly happy alone. And I don't think it's everyone's journey to find a long lasting partner. But I believe the people that talk about it for a reason. And part of the reason they talk about it is because they actually do want a partner. Now, I would hate to see someone go through their life telling themselves that story when it not necessarily being true. I would much rather someone be honest with how they are feeling and truly say, I do want one, but I'm just afraid. And if I was self aware enough to then realize why I'm afraid, I could then start to see why those fears hold me back. And then once I start to see why those fears hold me back, I can question, is this belief that I have that I don't want a partner legit? Or is that driven from a fear of mine? So that's kind of why I want to push people to self awareness, is because I do believe that a lot of the problems that we have in our life come from us and our own overthinking and our own problem solving that we need to do to truly give us the opportunity to move forward toward the life that we want. Um, if you think of like if you think of the life that you've lived, there's patterns that you've experienced within your life. Well, those bad patterns or those experiences that you've been through, if they continue to happen, chances are you play a part in that. And chances are you need to understand why you play a part in that to stop it from happening in the future. And that even might just be the fact that you enable someone's behavior. Like you're not, you can't stand up to other people, which means that you're super, super passive, and then you people please, and then they overstep the mark, but you don't do anything because you're passive. And then because they've pushed it too far, you then get aggressive, when in reality, you just needed to be assertive in the first place. But being self aware enough to know that I'm afraid to do this because if I stand up to this person, that might mean that they take love away from me. Well, that understanding and self awareness gives you the ability to change your behavior to be more assertive in the future, to stop yourself from being walked over, and then to stop yourself from going passive to aggressive and overreacting to a situation where if you just stood your ground from the start, it would never have got to that place. There's so many lessons we can learn about ourselves, and like becoming self-aware and understanding your mind is super important. Like I think about this with fat loss clients quite often because a lot of people come to me to lose weight, but they are unable to commit to creating the changes that they need to create. And a lot of that, I think, comes down to fear. And a lot of fear comes down to understanding yourself. If you understand why you feel the way you feel and why you have the fear you do, you can make conscious effort and changes to change that behavior and then to move towards the life you want. Like it's just about being honest. Like it really, really is. And the more honest with myself I have been, and the more honest with other people. I had an experience last week. We had a conversation with my partner, and we were chatting about like our past experiences and things like that. And I was just super duper honest with her about like one of the things that I'd experienced, and that honesty created so much connection. And this comes down to ways that, like I said, the psychoanalytical theories explain stuff, but this comes down to the way that we experience distress mentally. And I think a lot of it comes down to there is the person who we actually are, and then there's this person that we pretend to be. Say someone asks us a question, how are you? And I say, I'm fine, but I don't feel very good. You have that question in your mind, oh, should I have just told them how I'm actually feeling? The more congruent, basically meaning the more in line you are with who you are and who you're pretending to be, the less distress you feel. But the further and further away from yourself that you get, and the further and further, the more kind of lies you tell, like white lies around, I'm fine, or like the more you try to pretend to be a version of you you're not, the bigger that distress becomes. And being able to be honest starts with being self aware enough to know why you aren't being honest in the first place. So if you can drive home if you can start to really focus on being honest with other people and start to tell people the truth, it's a really, really strong way to become self-aware, in my opinion, which is on an evening to reflect on times that you wanted to say the truth and you didn't, or you wanted to tell the truth and you told a white lie, or the times when you wanted to say something but you said something else. Like, or I even like the one of like when someone asks you a question about, say, like your area of expertise and you don't know the answer, but you tell them a bullshit answer anyway. Well, that's the thing that gives you an insight to possible learnings that you could do to move forward in the future. And like the question of trying to be honest with yourself or honest with other people, just to me puts a real big highlight on my greatest fears, and those greatest fears are where the greatest growth comes from. Great story and an explanation from this is like the story of King Arthur and the knights, which are they go to find the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail basically will restore the kingdom to its former glory. And when they go to try and find it, they have to go into this wooded area, and every single knight has to enter the woods at the part of the woods which seem most darkest to them, because in the darkest parts of the woods, in the darkest parts of the forest, is where the greatest rewards can come from. Those rewards and the greatest, and that part of the forest for us is, where are you afraid to look? What within you are you afraid to look at? What part of you are you afraid to go towards? And that's the question that I think a lot of people need to ask themselves is there something I've been ignoring for a long period of time? Because it causes me a lot of fear, a lot of stress, and a lot of pain. If I was to look at this, if I was to open that can of worms, how much pain would it cause me? And that's part of the biggest reason why people don't do it. But I do personally believe that that's where the most growth comes from. I know in my own life, any time that I've faced up to the reality of a situation, I go through pain in the short term, but I get a lot of positives in the long term. Anytime that I attack the problem face on and don't ignore it, I realize it's not as big as it seems. Or I realize that was the thing that was holding me back in the first place. You have to, that's why I kept going through the saying of do the work, because do the work is not just about doing the work physically, it's about doing the work mentally. Bringing me on to my second point, which is build your body. So you have understand your mind, which is you want to understand truly yourself, why you are the way you are, what are the things you're ignoring, what are the biggest problems within your life that you could do something about, what caused you to be the version of you that you are today, who caused you to be the version of yourself that you are today. Do you still hold a lot of resentment there? Can you resolve that resentment? Can you resolve the way you feel about that person? Because then that will stop leading the life that you are currently leading. That will stop pushing you towards the direction that you're going in that you don't necessarily want to go in. If you are moving down a path and you realize you don't want to be on this path anymore, you are the one that took yourself there, and the only way you can get off of it is by to look at the reason you started to take that path in the first place. Build your body. Let's go on to the next bit. So building your body, to me, this is more than just a physique thing. So I realized early on that going to the gym helped my mental health. Really straightforward. I felt rubbish about myself. I would go to the gym and train. Two of my best mates got me into it, Charles and Aaron. They took me to the gym. I have videos, I wish I had them somewhere, I don't know where they are, of them helping me do my first pull-up and things like that. But we would go in, we'd train, they would leave, and I would stay for a little bit longer sometimes, and I would do more back exercises, or I'd do more arm exercises, and I'd leave and I'd feel good, and I'd go home and I'd watch videos of people training, and I was like, cool, like, if my face is a 5, but my body's an 8, then at least I'm above average. Like, that was kind of the thought process. My face might be a 3, but you could get the gist of it. The goal was always, I needed to build some confidence within myself. And the reason it come from my physique first was because if you think of it like a shop front, right? So you have all these great products that you could sell, but someone walks into your shop and it's an absolute mess. They can't find anything. Think of the middle aisle in Lidl, right? It's just bonkers, right? But that's your whole front of your shop. People have no idea what's in there. They have no idea what they're going to get when they come into your store. It looks completely disheveled. People are just like, well, I don't really want to go in there because, yeah, there may be some great deals there. There may be some great potential within this store. But this store in itself, it just looks all over the place. Well, that was what I felt about my physique, which was like, this is the front facing of me. Like, my worth is not my physique, but it gets people in the door. You know, you got a really good sign. You got one of those fancy neon lights over the flower wall. Like, people are going to come into your coffee shop. Your coffee might be shit, but they get you in the door because of how it looks. It's kind of that way inclined, right? I would feel more confident speaking to people. I would feel more confident in who I was. I would feel more physically confident and more capable if I was stronger and bigger. Simple, straightforward. A lot of the people I looked up to um, physically strong. So I was like, sick. Let's do that. But a lot of that journey really came down to a couple of different things, which was discipline in the first instance, which was I felt like I was failing at life and I knew that I needed to become disciplined and like really get my life in order to be able to move forward. So if I could become disciplined by and training every day and going when I didn't want to go, I would build up a bit of resilience. Now that resilience can then be carried forward into other areas of my life when I had to do something I didn't want to do. I could do that because I've kind of worked that muscle of resilience by going to the gym. I had the part of it which was being able to see my hard work turn into growth. If I worked really hard and tried to grow a muscle, I would get stronger and eventually I would be bigger. Like that's just the payout that you get from training. And you even get the glimpse of it when you train and you get a pump and you're like, look how big I am. Well, I gonna be like this in the future. That's what I'm aiming at. The gym is a really good analogy for your future self, which is I train, I get a pump, I see what I look like. And that is the carrot that you chase for the rest of your life, which is I want to be me. I want to be stood here without a pump, but look like me with a pump. That was always like that's always the goal, right? And that kind of carrot keeps getting moved forward. But that teaches you that hard work will pay off. Then when you start to do competitions, you start to kind of challenge to me, it was like challenge my knowledge around training and programming, challenge who I was. And it starts to create this like feedback loop of I train for a competition, I work really hard, I get this payout and reward, I feel great about it, and then I find the next thing to do. And then it gives me a little bit of relief from the fact that I felt like I was rubbish. It's like if you do something and you end up being good at it, or you do something and you get a reward from it, that is confirmation that what you have been doing and are doing, you need to continue to do. So it's this kind of thumbs up to keep doing what you're doing, right? And that keep doing what you're doing is purely given to you from the positive experiences of I go train, I get a pump, or I go train, I get stronger, I do this competition. Da, 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 da. The next part of like building your body to me is like kind of just building who you are as a person. Becoming physically resilient allows you to then become more mentally resilient, and it also allowed me to deal with my problems in a productive way. If I was frustrated or angry, I could go to the gym and I could get something positive out of it. I could put what is negative fuel and create some positivity out of it. And then the benefits of being fitter just meant that I could have conversations with people. People would like, I would feel more confident in those conversations. People would talk to you more. Like, there is unfortunately this bias that people have around like how people look and present themselves, which kind of gives you an indication this person looks after themselves. This person has created, if someone's created a physique, they've worked hard for that, and the physique that they've got is a demonstration of all of that hard work. So when you see someone who is in good shape, a lot of the times you don't just have the respect for them. Part of the reason you have the respect for them is because you've realized that they've worked hard to get to where they are, right? So working hard to get to where you are pays off in multiple aspects. And obviously, like trying to find, if I want a relationship, well, I need to be in shape because I want people to like me and fancy me. Like, I don't, I always think it's a weird thing to say because I fear through saying it, I'm potentially like hurting people who don't believe that. But it's genuinely just a belief of mine that I've experienced through my life. Like, if I looked better, I had more opportunities. It's as simple as that. Like, and so for me, it was always rather than like being like, oh, I can't believe everyone believes that. I was just like, okay, well, let's just do the thing. Like, I have that own bias myself. Someone else probably has that bias against me. Well, if I'm to get a partner that I really want to have, then I need to be a certain person and look a certain way. Like, it's just that simple. Um, so that was part of like the building your physique, but it was just building discipline and like kind of building trust within myself. I've got some notes down because I really want to get this right when I kind of explain it, because I just think like building building your body is more than just building a physique for me. Like I said, it's discipline, it's resilience, it's confidence. It really is confidence. Like it it's confidence it's confidence and it's trust within you. So this is why discipline is so great from a self-confidence standpoint, and this is why training kind of falls into that. If I need to trust who I am in order to trust my ability to achieve goals that I want to achieve and to have the life that I want. So, say for example, I am a version of me that I don't like, or I'm in a situation that I don't like. Well, I need to believe that I have the power to change that, because wherever you point the finger points the blame, and wherever you point the blame gives the power to. So if I give the power over to someone else and blame someone else, then they have the power over my life. Whereas if I point the finger towards me, then I have the power over my life, and I'm the one who has the control over that. So I realized that early on. We're gonna obviously get onto own your life in a bit, but that means that I need confidence that I can do what I say I'm going to do. And that a lot of the time came from physical challenges that I did, because that proved to me that I am the person I say I am and I can do the things that I say I'm going to do. So if I stick and I do and I have small promises and I reinforce that every single day, then I can reinforce that in other areas of my life. Like I've had to do this recently with changing my focus from my training being the top priority to my work being the top priority. And can I put the same discipline into my work as I did my training? And the only way I can get past the kind of self-doubt around that is because I know in the past I've worked really hard and I've achieved a goal. I just need to do the things that's going to achieve the goal. It's kind of like focusing on the inputs rather than the outputs. It's focusing on what gets you the gold medal, not on the gold medal itself. If I am a track runner, I need to train X amount of days. I need to do these sessions. I need to do this thing, and then I get the gold medal. So you focus on doing the things to give you the outcome, and building a body and building a physique gives you that. So like building your body, the body and mind thing, it gives you somewhere to blow off steam. It gives you somewhere to show yourself that you can improve who you are, and that ability to improve who you are gives you confidence in so many other areas of your life. We all have a dream and we all have a goal, and I think from a very young age, my goal was to have a family and to really enjoy a family that I've got. Um, it was like, I'm not going to lie about it. I've always kind of wanted a partner, and I've always wanted to be with someone. I've always wanted that. Like, I've always wanted to have kids. I've always wanted that in my life. That is something which I still chase to this day. And I knew that I had to be a version of myself which I liked, and a version of myself which I truly respected, and a version of myself that someone else would truly like and respect. So, building my body was about creating a version of me physically that someone would be attracted to. The self awareness aspect was building the parts of me that someone would be attracted to mentally. And then the owning your life side of it is basically taking full responsibility for everything. Um, I have blamed circumstances in the past. I have blamed other people. I have blamed relationships. But there is a lot of it which is my responsibility to take. And I think this ownership one could be a big unlock for a lot of people. Owning your life, to me, is about accepting your current situation and then making changes to improve it, but understanding that you are the only one that can improve it. You are the only one that can make those changes. Um, you are the only one. You are responsible for owning everything. You're responsible for why you are in the current situation you're in, and you're also responsible for trying to move towards a version of you that is better than the one that you currently are. Owning your life, I think, can really help you get past resentment and regret. So, if you've ever, it's basically owning your life to me is owning your life to me is as simple as if you blame someone else for your circumstances, that person holds the power over you for the rest of your life. So if you have always blamed someone for you feeling a certain way or for you ending up in a certain situation, that person may be responsible for the reason you are there. Like it may be their fault, but they are not responsible for any of the solutions. And the only way you can start to build solutions is to truly take ownership that the problems that you experienced were actually yours in the first place. So the problems that you had gone through to get to where you are now, you are responsible for those things that have happened to you. And then you are responsible for all of the things that can happen to you. So it's not about beating yourself up and going, oh my God, I did this, which led to that. It partly is, and that's the self-awareness aspect, is kind of being able to be self-aware enough to know what you did, which led to your life being in the current state that it's currently in. But it's also being able to accept that I could own my current situation by going, I am here because of me, but I could also get out of this because of me. And that's where the building your body aspect came into it, because if I could build the physique that I wanted to build, if I could build the resilience and build the discipline of doing that, then I could build resilience and discipline to move forward into a life that I would want. I have the power to change my life. That was the kind of my thoughts around owning my own life, because there is a massive difference between responsibility and blame, right? You could blame someone for what they've done, but you are the one that needs to own that. You are the one that needs to own why own your current situation. I am responsible for where I'm at right now. And people avoid this because they avoid taking responsibility because it accepts blame, and accepting blame means you've done something wrong. And if your biggest fear is that you're not good enough, well, that is going to feed directly into, I am not good enough because I did something wrong. I had a massive unlock with this last year, which was stop blaming yourself for things that are not your responsibility or your problem. So when a situation happens, 1 minute, situation involves 2, 3, 7 people, right? There's always someone to blame, or there is parts of the outcome of that. Say there's 7 of you working on a project, and the project fails. Okay, you work on a new product, you work on a new service, you were doing something in work, you were doing something in school, in college, in uni, and it's a group thing, and you finish it, and you don't get the results that you want. You're a sports team, you play a match, you lose the game. Now, we could all blame anyone else within that group for the reason that that thing failed, or we could all take ownership. If you blame someone, you basically say, well, in this group, that person is the core sole reason why we failed. That then gives them more kind of power, kudos, responsibility than it does yourself, right? This person is the one who this person is the reason why this thing has happened to me. That then stops you from being able to make changes moving forward, because you're not even looking at yourself as being the possible cause. So giving someone else the power over that, or over your life, giving someone else the blame over your circumstances and your situation, stops you from taking responsibility for why the thing has happened. That in itself causes issues in your own life, because then you can't make waves to move forward. You can't change who you are. You can't, because you're too busy focused on why that person is to blame for the situation. And then you are the only one who is in pain. So I always think this about anger, that when you are angry at someone, if you keep that anger within you and you're blaming someone for doing something, and say they don't even know what they've done, right? You're blaming someone ultimately for something that they don't know about. But say you're blaming someone for just simply who they are. They've done something which hurts you, but that person can never change. By blaming them and staying angry, you are the only one that loses. I learned this early on. I learned this very, very early on when I was angry at someone in my life, that I was blaming them for a lot of things. I blamed them for a lot of the reasons that I felt the way I felt. And our relationship was so bad. And that was because every time I was with them, I was so angry at them. They didn't know this, but I was just angry internally. And then I realized that 2 things happened there. One, I'm angry at them, and they don't even know that I'm angry at them or the reason why. So our disjointed relationship is due to me. That's my fault for being angry. And the second one is blaming them and saying that they are the sole cause of the problem that you are in means that you don't have the ability to make any changes to that relationship. You can't actually do anything because that gives your power away and that gives it to someone else. I would much rather live a life which I am fully in control of and make loads of mistakes and go down a path which I have chosen and it be the wrong path than blame someone else for my own circumstances. Because if I accept that I am to blame for whatever happens in my life, then at least I can get to the end of it and go, well, I tried my best. Instead of getting to the end of it and going, if that person didn't do that thing, I would have done. And it's kind of like, well, it's it takes away I think humans' greatest ability, which is to adapt. We adapt extremely well under so many different circumstances if we are willing to change. And the willingness to change comes from your own willingness to accept responsibility for your part that you've played in situations. I imagine you took responsibility for everything that has ever happened to you, and you said from here on out I'm going to be the one who makes changes in my life. You then get all of the power and all of the abilities within you to then make that change. Like the thing I always think about is if someone has done it, then it means that I could do it. Like I don't know if you do this, but I'd watch a film or I'd read a book or I'd play a game and I put myself in their shoes. I go like I wish I could do that or I am the hero of this story. And I do that every single time because there is something great within me which gives me the ability to like I love the idea of overcoming. I love the idea of being able to change my circumstances. I love seeing the hero's journey play out in IMAX 70 millimeter. I Taking responsibility and owning your own life to me is just about moving towards a version of you that you want to be, but you can only do that if you accept that you are the one who has caused the problems that you have caused in your life. Like, yes, it may not be your fault, but again, it is your responsibility. I think, like, say someone has done you wrong, or you want someone to change the way that they are acting, there is a hidden cost within that, and that hidden cost is all of the stress and all of the time that you're wasting on that person, on hoping that person changes. Like after a certain while, you need to accept that you are now enabling the behavior of that person. I think is Al-Anon, which is you have Alcohol Anonymous, and then you have the people who struggle. That you have the families and friends of people who are alcoholics. And one of the statements that they say, which is, uh, I love you. I wish you no harm, but I can't allow this madness in my life anymore. Sometimes you need to be able to do that with people within your life, and that is you taking responsibility. Because if you are constantly blaming that person for how they're acting or how they are treating you or how they make you feel, you need to take a step in not allowing that to happen and not just being passive enough and letting it happen over and over and over and over again to the point that you are sick and tired of it and then you lash out and go aggressive again. I think that there is a big part of owning your space and having hard conversations with people to then allow you to be able to move forward. Like we've all had it where there's elephants in a room. You have this kind of falling out with someone and no one really talks about it. That's costing you a lot more energy thinking about it than it is to just have that conversation. Um, I just think of it as like I always think of the end in mind. So one of the parts of this book, let me find it, is I think it's one of the best parts of it. I really do. Where are we? Where are we? Section one. The end in mind. There is one thing none of us can avoid, And for a lot of people, that thought is a scary one. It is scary in it is so scary, in fact, that some people try to ignore the fact that one day it will happen. Let me start again. Sorry. There's one thing none of us can avoid. And for a lot of people, that thought is so scary that some people try to ignore the fact that one day it might happen. They believe that they will live forever, that death is something that they will deal with when it comes, that it is not a problem for today. This can allow people to think that they have the time to act however they want to act, to do whatever they want to do, and to deal with the consequences in the future. The problem with this way of thinking is this turns into I'll do that tomorrow mentality. What if tomorrow never comes? We aren't guaranteed it. So why wait for tomorrow to start doing things that you know you should do today? When it is all said and done, what do you want to say you did in your life? What do you want to say you achieved? What life would you be happy that you've lived? How do you want people to remember you? How do you want people to feel about you? We all have to think about the end and work every day to live a life that we are proud of. Live today with the end in mind. When I think of the end in mind, I think about the future version of me looking back over my life, and would I be proud of who I am, or would I regret not making decisions? And a lot of that regret comes from fear. And a lot of that fear is driven from our own insecurities, that we need to be self-aware enough to know that our fear is the thing that's holding us back. And then we need to take ownership of that to be able to move forward. Confidence in who you are comes from proof that you are who you say you are. And that tackles big fears and big insecurities. And if you think of it like how we would help someone get over fears of spiders, you would first kind of get them to think of a spider in their brain. You would then maybe show them a picture of a spider on a computer. You would then maybe show them a video of a spider. You would then maybe take them to a zoo to see a spider in its natural habitat. You would then get them to be in a room with a spider, and then eventually you'd get them to be able to hold it. All of these steps that you take teach the person that it's going to be okay. In life, you need to take risks and take steps to tell yourself that it's going to be okay and that you can trust in your own ability. Because we somehow believe that someone else is going to come and save us, or if someone else has achieved something, that they have some special stuff that we don't have. And that is not true. We all have within us the potential to be the person that we want to be. And the way you do that is to build up confidence within yourself. And I do believe if you go and train, you go to the gym and you build up that confidence and you build up that discipline and you build up that resilience, that you can then bleed that into other areas of your life, and you can start to then stick to being the person that you want to be by doing the things that you know you should do, by proving to yourself time and time again that if you put enough effort in, you will achieve the goal that you want to achieve. And if you do that enough times, from small things like getting up one day and making your bed, getting up one day and tidying the house, getting up one day and going to work, getting up the next day, going to work and working as hard as you can on a project, to achieving the results that you can within that project, to then reaping those rewards, to the one day that you will build this stack so high of all of the things you have ever done that you will be confident enough to know that no matter what comes your way, you can take responsibility for it, you can take responsibility for why it's happened, and you can take responsibility for the direction that you are going to go in your life. If you own your life, you can move towards it at such rapid velocity, because you realize that the fears you have are all made up anyway. They are driven from this feeling that we are not enough, when in reality, everyone is enough. We all have it within us. We all have the ability to be great, and we all have just intrinsic worth because we are simply here. It is a lottery, the fact that we are on this earth. It really, really is. And for those of you who don't want to be here sometimes, you have to realize that it does get better, but you have to be the reason of it. You have to be the cause of your life improving. You cannot wait for anyone else to do it. You have to take everything you have, and you have to move towards a version of you which you know you could be. You have to not let the fear of not being good enough stop you from reaching your potential and stop you from being happy. Like, the amount of people that I speak to that I feel are hiding away from things that they should face fully front on, it really upsets me to think that there are people out there who could achieve a life and have the things that they most dreamed of. But one, they're not self-aware enough to realize that they are stopping themselves. Two, they don't trust in their ability to deal with the problems that come their way. And three, they'd rather blame other people, and they'd rather blame other things. It's that person's fault, it's this person's fault, it's the government, it's this, it's that. When in reality, if you just go, the life I live and the unhappiness I'm experiencing is down to my own either views of this thing or my own choices. Whereas if you can take a step towards owning your own life and owning your own responsibility, you can find the life you want, and you can create the life you want. I really do believe that. Autonomy or self-actualization or agency, the ability to affect the world, we all have within us. And I do think it just comes down to backing yourself a lot. And that comes down to knowing all your demons, knowing where they hide in the closet, knowing where the pitfalls are, knowing where the pitfalls in your own mind are, knowing why you struggle the way you struggle, and then being able to take ownership of that and move forward. Live today with the end in mind. Just kind of, yeah. Understand your mind, build your body, own your life are the three pillars which stack up to make Hack the Body, Hack the Mind, to make what I believe in, to make my why. Any podcast, any YouTube video, any piece of content, any way that I deliver PT sessions, any way that I deliver my coaching, it all comes back to the same thing, which is I want people to live the life that they want to live, and I want them to realize that they have the ability to change it. And I want them to realize that if they work hard enough at something and prove to themselves enough times that they will get reward. I think that's another part of the training aspect, which is sometimes you don't see results straight away with training, and you need to work for 12 weeks before you see the results. And I do believe that the ability to work for a long period of time without results is a skill and is a muscle which is also built through training. I follow this program. I don't think about the results. I test it at the end. And that should be kind of what we do with all parts of life, which is I'm going to make this journey and travel across the world and create a life somewhere else. And I don't know if it's going to work, for example. And you do it and you don't judge that until a year's time, 3 years' time. And then you go, okay, has that worked? No, nowhere. It's back to the drawing board. Yeah. It's been fun trying to figure out my why. It really has. It's been fun trying to build the pillars of what I believe to be some of the strengths of humans moving forward, which is to really build up your own confidence in who you are by like kind of building physique you're proud of, because then you feel more confident in that, by understanding why you are the way you are and your deepest fears, and just not letting them hold you back, owning those fears, owning that place you're in, and then moving forward from that point. Yeah, this has been fun to riff on this. My name's Charlie. This is Hack the Body, Hack the Mind. If you haven't already, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.